start the recording. I got it.
Okay, do you want me to? I was gonna wait, I think, just a few more minutes before starting,
Yeah,
but I
I
may
think we can
have.
wait a minute or two just to see if more people
Okay,
join in.
wonderful. I'll just pause the recording then just for another minute or two. All right, so good evening and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Molly Wyman Soto, and I'm the Regional Enrollment Coordinator in the Northern California region. For CIEE's high school summer abroad programs. And I'm here today with one of our wonderful alumni, our global navigators, Elena. Elena, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. I'm Elena. I'm a junior in high school right now, and this past summer I went to Madrid to study Spanish language and culture.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. We're excited to have Elena here to share more about her experiences on the ground in one of our programs. And I'll be giving some more general information about our programs and our honors programs in particular. But first, I'd love to start us off by sharing a little bit about myself and how study abroad has changed my life. I studied abroad in high school in Vietnam, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without the opportunity that a scholarship gave me, as well as the support of some teachers and my family. And it really was a catalyst of change in so many aspects of my life and changed the way that I view the world and my place in it, and opened so many doors for my future academic and professional pursuits. After studying abroad in Vietnam in high school, I went on to study abroad in Taiwan in college, as well as Spain and Chile. And it truly has made such an impact in terms of my goals and the connections that I have with my community, as well as my global community. Outside of work with CIEE, I volunteer with international animal rescue organizations and have rescued close to 10 animals now internationally when I travel. And I don't think I would be able to do that either without all the experience and knowledge that I've gained studying abroad, as well as the community connections. So it really is so impactful in my life. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to pay it forward with the future generation of global citizens now and support them in their study abroad journeys. So happy to be here today as well and share with everybody. Um, so I'll get started in our presentation on our honors language and culture programs. So we'll start off here with a map of all of our locations that we currently have for our high school summer abroad programs across the world. It's wonderful to see a few new dots on the map too. We have some new language and culture programs this year in Portugal and in Korea. And I would love to hear from everybody here tonight if you could share in the chat if you could be a high school student, again, yourself, I would love to do that again myself. Where would you study abroad if you could choose one of our locations? I see here Seoul, Sevilla. Wonderful. I studied abroad in Sevilla in college myself, and I'm very biased. Can't recommend it enough. Madrid. Elena studied abroad there too. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, everybody. That's a great way to get us started. All right, so why choose CIEE in particular? I think there's so many reasons to choose CIE in particular myself, but just to get us started, we have been sending students abroad for over 75 years now, since World War II in the post-World War II era. We first sent our students off actually in Navy ships, which is incredible. Um, and really helped build, cultural bridges and post-World War II relations across the world, and have continued to send students abroad since then. We support now over 40,000 students a year, not just our high school students, but also our college students and inbound students who are coming in to study abroad in the US as well. So a really big global community that continues to grow. And we are a nonprofit organization. I think that's a really important factor as well to keep in mind. There's so many for-profit student tour groups, for example, that are definitely going to look a lot different than a nonprofit organization like this. We are able to, as a nonprofit organization, accept donations, which allows us to have an incredible scholarship fund, the largest scholarship fund for high school students in all of North America, so Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And we are able to send, for example, last summer, over 40% of our students that studied abroad with us in 2024 were recipients of our combined academic merit and financial need scholarship. So it's incredible that we're able to continue to send more and more students abroad who might not otherwise have the opportunity. And we're very proud of that factor as well. I'd also like to share some statistics that we have from our prior summer abroad, 2024. The feedback from our students, I think, is really invaluable and important to share today. We had 89% of our alumni report back that they are motivated to study abroad again. We had 86% report that they have improved their communication skills. We had 91% report that they improved intercultural awareness. We had 70% report that they improved their leadership skills, and 82% report an increased willingness to take initiative, which is really incredible. All right, so we have two types of programs or categories of programs. We have topic programs that are focused on a specific topic in the areas of STEM, arts and culture, business, and social change. These programs are 3 weeks long in duration, and many of these programs in our learning and leadership category of programs offer hours of community service learning as well, which is a unique opportunity. Many high schools would recognize that and count that towards voluntary hours and credits that they may have at your local high school. It's also an incredible opportunity to develop experience in service. I myself participated in a service learning program, and it has contributed so much in helping me meet my professional goals as well. Now, it also is an opportunity for students to get ahead in exploring a particular area, for example, business or STEM, that they may not otherwise have an opportunity to really focus on before college, and explore an area that they may want to major in, for example, before they even apply to colleges. So definitely a unique opportunity there. Now, we also have our language and culture programs, which is really what we're going to focus on tonight, which are 4 weeks long in duration. And our language and culture programs keep growing, which is really exciting. We have programs in Spanish, French, German, Italian, Arabic, Japanese, Mandarin, and then this year we have new language and culture programs in Korean and Portuguese. Now, a really important aspect of our language and culture programs is the homestay experience. And that really allows students to develop connections with the local community of their host country and fully immerse themselves in the language as well. What's incredible is that we actually tie the homestay experience to the curriculum. So students will have assignments, community conversation assignments that are connected to the language targets that they are learning in their 2 to 3 hours of class in the morning. So that reinforces it when they're home with their host families and gives them an opportunity to dive even deeper into those language goals that they're working on. And in terms of academic opportunities, students can opt in for 4 college credits in our language programs. They can also opt in for the Global Seal of Biliteracy if they are eligible. And some exciting statistics to share regarding those 2 points are that for the summer of 2024, 41% of our students in our language and culture programs earned the Global Seal of Biliteracy. I think that's really incredible. And to give more context into the Seal of Biliteracy, this isn't a seal through CIEE. This is actually awarded at the state level through the Department of Education. And so it's really an impressive accomplishment for our students and something that I think really helps them in their future academic and professional pursuits. And I'd also like to share that 1 month of CIEE is the equivalent of 1 year of school in a language course, which is really an incredible reflection of how impactful language immersion is and how different that is from the typical classroom experience in US high schools. All right, so now we have an opportunity to hear more from Elena. Elena's shared some pictures here with us today, which is awesome to see from her experience in Madrid, as well as her QR code to open up an application if you haven't already opened up an application for yourself or for the student that you're representing. So, Elena, would you like to go ahead and share some of the pictures that you have here and why you chose them?
Yeah, for sure. So I think first I want to give like a rundown of what my daily schedule looked like in Madrid. Um, every day we would begin the day with a cultural excursion that would typically last about 2 hours, and some of the most memorable excursions I can remember are definitely visiting famous landmarks in Madrid, such as El Prado Museum, Retiro Park, and participating in cultural related classes like cooking and a dance class. One of the pictures I have in the top right corner is actually from the dance class that we did. We learned like flamenco and we danced to like cultural music, and the woman in the middle she was our instructor. Um, all of our excursions were done entirely in Spanish. For example, the tour guides would speak in Spanish, and for the dance class, she spoke in Spanish the entire time. After an excursion on a typical day, we would have kind of like a community mission that would require us to initiate a conversation with a Spanish speaker in the city. We called this Misión Eñe, and it was definitely a little stressful at times, but I think it really helped me improve my confidence with trying to speak Spanish with native speakers. And this would then be followed by a lunch break of about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and we were basically able to go eat wherever we wanted in the city. Some people would go back to their homestays or just eat their packed lunch at the CIEE building, which is usually what I did because my homestay was kind of far from the center of the city. And after this, we would have a 3 hour class from 2 to 5 in the afternoon. And we had classes in the afternoon in Madrid because it gets really hot during the later part of the day, being over 100 degrees every single day. There's no clouds, it never rains, it gets really hot. But having class in the afternoon gave us an opportunity to get out of that heat for some time. And that was definitely relieving. My class had about 10 people in it, and it was taught entirely in Spanish. The teacher was from Madrid, and we had to speak Spanish with him and with our classmates during class time. We typically learned Spanish vocabulary and grammar, and we would do activities to accompany with that. And we would also have weekly projects that would focus on a different aspect of Spanish culture. One of the projects I can remember is we had to do kind of like a study, I guess, on a particular neighborhood in Madrid. And I remember that me and my partner did La Latina, the neighborhood that's actually the oldest neighborhood in Madrid. And we went to the neighborhood and took pictures, we talked to locals, we learned a lot about it, which was really enlightening. My teacher was super nice, and so were my classmates, and the class environment was a really comfortable one, so I never felt embarrassed if I made mistakes while I was speaking. And then after class ended at 5, we would have free time to do whatever we wanted until curfew at 10. And usually me and my friends would take this time to go get food, go shopping, or take the metro to other areas of the city. On the really hot days, we would go swimming in the pool at one of my friends' homestays, which was always a fun experience. We did that at least once a week. And the program provided us with our own metro cards, so this was really easy to do, and the entire city was very accessible to us. And I think overall, the program was definitely a great experience, and I'm really glad I did it because I made some really good friends and memories, and I definitely would recommend the experience. So yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing, Elena. These pictures are awesome. And La Latina is also my favorite neighborhood in Madrid with the best tapas. So that's so great that you got to focus on that for your project. Awesome. All right. I'm going to continue with the presentation, but when we wrap up, we'll have an opportunity to ask some questions where Elena can give her input as well. And I have a few follow-up questions for her too, because I'm curious about her experience. But thank you so much for sharing. And before I switch the slide, please do take a picture of the QR code if you haven't yet opened up an application, because Elena will actually get referral benefits for that. So we'd love to support our alums. All right, I'll move on to the next slide, but I'll also give an opportunity when we wrap up to go back to your QR code, Elena. So I'm going to touch on a little bit of the differences between our honors programs specifically and our general language and culture programs. The main difference is eligibility. So for our general language and culture programs, for our Spanish and French programs, we need to see 1 year of high school Spanish or French. For our Japanese, Chinese, Arabic, Italian, Korean, and Portuguese language and culture programs, we do accept beginner students in the language, but for Spanish and French specifically, at least 1 year of high school, Spanish or French, we need to see on their transcript. And then for the honors program, we need to see at least 2 years. And that's really important because students will actually take a placement exam and be placed into different levels in their programs. And the honors program starts at the intermediate level, whereas the general language and culture program, again, does have beginners who've completed 1 year of Spanish. For example, the honors program starts at least 2 years. And students actually take a pledge of language immersion where they speak the target language, not only in their classes and with their host families, but with each other, which is incredible. And I think in the honors program, you really get the most out of that because your classmates are at the intermediate to advanced level and are able to really have conversations with you in the target language. And you're going to be fully immersed throughout the whole duration of the program, from the time you're in class to your cultural activities in the afternoon to your host family connection in the evening. All right. Now, to wrap up, I'd love to open the floor to some questions. But to get us started, I'm actually going to ask Elena a few questions to dive deeper into her experience in our Honors Language and Culture program in Madrid. So, Elena, I would love to hear a little bit more about your host family experience. Could you tell me more about what that was like?
Yeah, so my host family was a mom, a dad, and they had a younger daughter who was 1 year younger than I was. They also had another daughter who was a year older, but she was studying abroad in Canada at the time I was there studying abroad in Spain. So they definitely had like experience with study abroad programs and were very welcoming to me because of that. We spoke only in Spanish when we were at home because the program reached out to them and told them that that was kind of like the goal and that was what I was supposed to be doing. Um, and they were definitely so nice. They were so welcoming, and I definitely miss them because they were just such great people. And actually, when the program ended, my parents came to Madrid and we had a dinner with my family and them where we all got to meet each other. And it was just a really great experience.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I think you touched on an important point too, Elena, that our host families are also really committed to international education and cultural exchange, which is, of course, why they're wanting to host students from the US. And to give everybody a little bit more background about our host families as well, they do go through a background check, of course, with the local police, for example, in Madrid, as well as a home visit. And then, just like our students do a pre-departure orientation course, so do our host families. So they're also preparing for the experience of hosting international students. And oftentimes, like Elena mentioned, they also have students in the family that have studied abroad or doing exchange programs and are really passionate about cultural exchange and committed to that. All right, and I see here we do have a few questions already, which is great. So, one person asked Elena, how many years or what level of high school Spanish were you in prior to the program?
So I took Spanish through middle school and through high school, the years that I've been in so far. So I'd say like about 5 years of Spanish, but you don't need that many to be in the honors program.
Thanks for sharing that. So, yeah, the requirement is 2 years on a transcript, a high school transcript. Or if we have heritage speakers, or for example, students who perhaps were in a Spanish immersion school, for example, in elementary or middle school, but then didn't go on to take Spanish coursework in high school, we would be able to do a language verification phone call in the place of seeing those 2 years on their transcript. So that's also an option. And we're happy to help you if you have any additional questions about those eligibility requirements and how to set up a language verification phone call. We're happy to help you with that. I will make sure to put my information in the chat when we wrap up to reach out. And I see here somebody asked about reaching out to your family and speaking with your family from home while on program. Yes, we of course encourage students to stay in touch with their families while on program. And of course, that would be in the language that you normally communicate in with your family. Um, Elena, would you mind speaking a little bit more to the language pledge that you take with your classmates and how that works in the day to day?
Yeah, so on like the first day of the program, you have to kind of like sign this language pledge that says basically that you'll promise to speak the language that you're studying whenever you're in class or doing excursions related to the program. So basically, whenever you're like within the program. So when you're outside of that, like once class ends and you go back to your homestay, or when you're with your friends at lunch or after school, you're allowed to speak in English with them whenever you want. It's just when you are like participating in the program.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Elena. And we have another good question that's more for you than for me here. Is there something that in hindsight that you wish you had packed for your trip to Madrid?
Um, Not really. I feel like I packed everything that I needed, but like anything that I needed to get, I could get easily from like corner stores or grocery stores in Madrid. A lot of the stuff was pretty cheap. Like I'd say compared to how things are in the US, it's definitely cheaper over in Spain. Um, so yeah, I can't really think of anything that I wish I packed, but if you do need anything that you don't have, you can always get it easily.
Yeah, you can get a fan if you need it. I ended up getting myself when I was in Madrid for the summer doing an au pair program. Actually, one of those little electric fans that I'd recommend, but you can get it when you're there. Um, but yeah, it is quite warm there, so I would say pack seasonally. But exactly like Elena said, it's really a place that you can find whatever you might need. Definitely. And we have another question here about placement in language levels. So that actually, we're not just determining that off of the transcripts, for example, or the language verification call that we would complete with students prior to ensure that they're eligible for the honors program. Once students are accepted into the honors program, part of the pre-departure process is actually a stamp exam, placement exam that students complete remotely before they leave. And then when they arrive, they do also have a verbal exam. And it rather than this being, a make or break exam, this is a placement exam. It's really just to see where students are at within the either general language and culture programs or the honors language and culture programs to ensure that the class that they're placed in is really the best place for them to get the most out of the experience. So depending on how students place, there may be, 2 or 3 sections of language. But the main difference is that in the honors program, everybody's going to be starting at least at the intermediate level, whereas for our general language and culture programs, we do have some students who may be placed at the beginner level, depending on how their stamp placement exam results turn out. And we're happy to support students with that in the spring and make sure that they're comfortable with that process. We actually proctor the stamp exams ourselves, the CIE team, so we're there to support you along the way. All right, let's see here. Another good question, I think, for you, Elena. Did any of your assignments require participation of your host family? And were the assignments primarily to interact with the local community? Could you speak a little bit to that, the community conversations and host family connection aspect of the curriculum?
Yeah, so the major assignments we had were the projects that we would do each week, and they incorporated both the community conversations and things with our host family. Like one example I can think of is we had to ask our host family about their favorite like plazas to visit in Madrid, and I had to put that in my slideshow that I would then present to my class at the end of the week. Um, and we also had to ask similar questions to people in the community, and both of those would go into our slideshow and be part of the assignment. So you don't always have to do it every single day, but some assignments will call for like a requirement to ask about this because it has to be in there because it's part of your grade.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing more about that. Let's see here. Somebody's asking a little bit more about eligibility requirements. I would say if you're, like this question indicates you're not quite sure what level you would be at, reach out to us. I'll put our contact information in the chat when we're wrapping up, and we're happy to consult with you and take a look at your academic history and talk about that in more detail in your case. But yeah, the general eligibility requirement again is 2 years for honors or to complete the language verification phone call, which if you're doing it in Spanish, you may be speaking with me, actually. I'm one of our Spanish representatives. And so, yeah, if you have more specific questions about that or you're a bit confused because of your background, this person took a college course, but it wasn't on a high school transcript, definitely reach out to us directly and we'll be able to take a look at your case in particular and give you some guidance. All right, and here's another good question for you, Elena. What did you do on the weekends when there was not a program excursion planned? So in your free time?
In my free time, I would usually like go places with my friends. Like on Sundays in Madrid, they have this market called El Rastro, and it's like a flea market or a farmer's market with all these stands set up, and they have clothes, jewelry, like all kinds of stuff. So we would go to that sometimes on Sundays, but on the weekends, we actually have these trips to other cities. Like we went to Segovia one weekend, which is another city in Spain, and then another weekend we went to Valencia, which was an overnight trip, and we went to the beach. We went to restaurants. It was really fun. So there will always be something to do on weekends, but in my free time when I had it I would just take it to explore the city and hang out with my friends.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing more about that. Awesome. And let's see here. We have some questions like, what if you score high on the placement exam, but then when you arrive, you realize it's too hard? I would say it's really important for students to be their own greatest advocate and communicate with your teachers as well as your program leaders if you're experiencing any challenges. I mean, a huge part of studying abroad is to get out of your comfort zone. Um, and to be challenged in terms of language immersion to really grow. But of course, it's really important to be an advocate for yourself as a student and make sure that you connect with your program leaders and your teachers if you're struggling. Um, there's also a question about the stamp exam. So again, I'm sorry if that was confusing, but the stamp exam prior to the program is just a placement exam. Now, if students are opting and are hoping to be eligible for the seal of biliteracy, then there is a post-program stamp exam that you would need to score at least a 5 or above on in order to be eligible for the seal of biliteracy. However, that wouldn't apply unless you are hoping to be eligible for the seal of biliteracy. That minimum score would not apply unless you're applying for that specifically. And we would, of course, support you with that if that's something that you're interested in. We would give you the resources that you need to use your stamp exam results to then apply for the seal of biliteracy in your state. And another question here about college credit. So, college credit is optional. You can opt in for it. I would highly encourage everybody to do so if they can. This is a really unique opportunity to get ahead on college credits before you're even in college. It's also very cost effective. We have an additional college credit fee if you do opt in for it. That's $150 prior to the program. That's a lot more cost effective than, per credit hour. It starts at around $400 in the United States. Much more expensive once you're actually at a college or university to earn those credits. So it's a great opportunity to get ahead and certainly unique in that only about 2% of US high school students study abroad. So I think it helps you get ahead in more than one way. You're getting ahead in your college credits, but you're also standing out in the admissions process when you're applying to college, as you'll be one of those 2% of high school students that are studying abroad at that level. Of course, it's much more common to study abroad in college, but it still really is unique for high school students to study abroad and really, I think, helps students stand apart when they are in that college admissions process. And let's see here. If you are in the honors program, do you still get to interact with the students in the regular language program? Yes, so there will be a general language and culture program at most locations. For example, in Madrid, there's also a general language and culture program where students are also studying. It would depend on the location, but for example, Madrid, yes, you would be interacting with other language and culture students there. And Elena, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but of course, the language courses are based on level, but students always take their courses at the CIEE Center. So, yeah, there may be opportunity to interact with your cohort who's not in the honors program specifically. Elena, do you have much opportunity to interact with students in the general language and culture program? Or were you just coming and going between classes? Or give us some more insight on your end of what that was like.
Yeah, so I feel like me personally, I didn't really see them as often in those in the regular language and culture program because they were in a completely different building from the honors program. But we were together for the weekend excursion, so we would get to see them then. And for some of the morning excursions, so there would always be a chance to interact with them. And obviously, they're in the same city as us, so if we ever wanted to meet up with them, we would always be able to do that. But the friends that I made were the ones in the honors program because those were the people I was around the most. So I definitely spent more time with other honors kids, but there's definitely opportunities to see the general people.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Elena. So yeah, depending on the location, yeah, as Elena said, there may be a separate classroom or separate building entirely. However, the students are still there for the same session A or session B, a 4-week duration of the program. So there's definitely opportunity to interact in excursions and other opportunities. But the language courses are again divided based off of language level. And even within the general language and culture program, for example, each class will be divided by language level. So that's just something to keep in mind. And we have another question here about your language level, Elena, post program. Were you able to skip a level in your high school?
So before doing this program, I was in Spanish 4, and now I'm in AP Spanish. So I definitely think that doing this program gave me the confidence that I needed to like take that step and take a more advanced Spanish. Like I definitely wouldn't have taken that initiative if I hadn't done this program because I wouldn't have had the confidence. So I think this definitely gave me a lot of basic knowledge that prepared me for AP Spanish. So it definitely helped me in that sense.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Elena. And somebody asked if a lot of students have completed their AP exam already prior to this program. I have spoken to a lot of students who take AP after their experience with CIEE, or even go on to not take the AP course because they earn college credit for college credits, which is about the equivalent of an AP. Course, if you pass the AP exam and are awarded those credits, and if those are transferable to your university. So oftentimes students will complete a program with us in place of the AP if they're eligible for the college credits, or continue their in the AP level because they are at that level upon return. That has been my experience in most of my conversations with students in this program in particular. Any other questions for Elena or myself about our honors programs?
Molly, there's some questions in the regular chat as well.
Oh, thank you so much, Brianna. I was just looking at that Q&A, but now I see here in our chat. Okay, awesome. All right, we have a great question here for Elena. What was the best part of your experience, and what was the most challenging part of your experience? A
Yeah,
lot
so
to pack in there, but
yeah, for sure. I would say the best part was getting to meet new people from like all across the United States. Like in my class alone, we had people from California, Texas, Chicago, like from all over. So it's really interesting to hear about like how their lives are different from mine. Even though we live in the same country, they live so far away, like in all these different states. So that was really cool to see. And like making my friends that I made was definitely a great experience. And I feel like it kind of made me more outgoing and like, I don't know, improve my social skills because I was definitely more introverted going into the program, but it was really great to come out of my shell a little bit. And for the most challenging part, I would say is definitely like finding the confidence to speak in Spanish with like the native speakers because I would feel like embarrassed about getting things wrong, but um, when doing the program, you kind of just have to push aside that embarrassment because your assignments like the Mission Enye and talking with people in the community, you have to do it. So it helps you get over that embarrassment. So that was definitely challenging, but I feel like once I did get over it, it was really helpful.
awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, Alina. And definitely in my own experience as well, studying abroad, that language barrier can be tough, but overcoming that really is so rewarding. So I can definitely reiterate with that as well. And there's a question here that's more my area about safety and any issues that may arise while abroad. So in terms of student support on program, your main point of reference and your go-to person throughout the duration of the program would be your program leaders. They're usually U.S. high school teachers, counselors, coaches who are involved in education in the U.S. and travel abroad with our students, which is a bit different from our local staff. For example, our teachers are local teachers teaching a highly localized language, but our program leaders are coming from the US in most cases. So they are there to support students from day one, chaperoning flights if you choose to go on the chaperoned flight. Throughout the 4 weeks of the language and culture program, there's a ratio of one program leader for every 12 students to ensure that they're there and available to support students. And then we also have a local health and safety emergency line that students can call at any point if they have any sort of health or health crisis or urgent situation arise. And again, that's local, whether that you be in Madrid or you were in the language and culture, honors language and culture program in Rennes, France. That number is for local staff to support you. So that is just a little bit of information about our health and safety protocol, but it's certainly very, very important to us. And if you'd like more information, you're always welcome to reach out to us and we can provide additional resources. All right, somebody asked again about the seal of biliteracy. So again, this isn't something that's specific to CIEE. This is something that students will actually apply for at the state level. And I will provide a link here if you'd like to read more about the Global Seal of Biliteracy. But we do, of course, support students who are applying for the Global Seal of Biliteracy. And you would need to, in your post-program stamp exam that we administer, score a 5 or above, which is intermediate to high level in all 4 testing categories, which are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. But again, I would say explore that website a little bit if you're interested in that, and feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to support you with that process if you choose to apply for the Seal of Biliteracy. And I see another question here about chaperoned flights. So yes, all of our program sites have the option of a chaperoned flight, and that would be chaperoned by either a program leader or it could even be a CIE staffer such as myself. I chaperoned a flight to Rome last summer, which is really an incredible experience. I chaperoned with a program leader who then stayed for the duration of the program, but I just chaperoned the flight. And yes, we have an arrival window at the airport for students to arrive from their various destinations across the US at our Gateway Airport. And all that information is available in the spring to confirm your flight plans. So there's the chaperone flight option, which I definitely encourage. I think it's a really great way for students to start bonding with their cohort even before they arrive, and certainly gives some peace of mind for students and parents if it's their first time studying abroad or traveling abroad. And you also would have the option of flying independently, but we would still require you to book with our partners, FlightFox. They support students throughout the travel day in case there's any sort of incident that they need support with, any change in flight routes or anything like that that they may need support with. So we do require students to either book on our chaperoned flight or independently, but still through our partners, FlightFox, who would support students on travel day. And again, we'll support you with that in the spring in the pre-departure process. But either way, students would be arriving within an arrival window where CIE staff is there to pick them up in Madrid, for example. So that is why we ensure that our students, either way, whether they're flying independently but booked through FlightFox or on the chaperoned flight that is coordinated through FlightFox, that they're supported on arrival day. All right. Any other questions? Oh, I see another question here about there's no additional fee for the chaperoned flight. It's just the cost of the flight itself. But yes, during the spring, we can support you with that in the pre-departure process. That's part of it, deciding whether or not you would opt for that chaperoned flight or an independent flight. One factor definitely is, how close you are to the Gateway Airport, which varies depending on the location that you will be flying to. So closer to the spring, I would say it's a great opportunity to connect with your regional enrollment coordinator in particular, and they can support you in diving deeper into your options for travel and making sure that you are all set for that. Somebody is asking if you were in level 3 or 2 in the program when you were in Madrid, Elena.
Yeah, I was in level 2. Level 3 was like a lot of fluent speakers or people with like really high level of Spanish. And I was more intermediate.
So thanks for sharing that. Lots of questions about the language levels, and I think maybe a little anxiety about that. I would say, it's really not something to be nervous about. It's just to ensure that students are in the right level for them to get the most out of the program. Yeah, so you certainly want to be challenged, but challenged within reason so that you're able to communicate and continue to build on your language skills. So the placement exam process is really about that. It's about making sure students are in the right level for them to be able to get the most out of the experience. Right, any other questions? I'm going to pop back to Elena's slide here while we still have a few more minutes so that anybody who has not yet opened an application can use the QR code here to open theirs up, and that will be a referral through Elena, who will then get referral rewards. So please do open up an application with her QR code if you haven't already opened an application up.
Can I just add, Molly, that if you open your application with Elena's referral link, you will also get a $200 discount on your tuition, which can be combined with any other scholarship or
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Yes, so it's a two-way reward. Elena is rewarded for any future CIE programs that she participates in, and yes, $200 reward for those who are the referees as well. So yes, please do go ahead and scan that if you can, if you haven't already opened up an application. Any other questions before we wrap up?
You're seeing a question asking how many people are usually in each group.
Oh, I see that there. So the cohort size varies from around 30 to 60 students. Every class size is averaged out at about 16 students, no more than that, to maintain a small class size. In the spring, we do have capacity numbers that we can take a look at and speak to you about in more detail. However, at this point, just you could expect a general range of 30 to 60. And then if you're really curious, closer to departure time, you can reach out and we can take a look at our capacity charts and numbers and give you an exact number of what to expect on program. There's a lot of factors going into that, and we do wait until the scholarship results come out and the moving pieces of capacity across our programs before we have those numbers finalized. But again, the classroom size averages at 16 students, so it is a small classroom size that you would be expecting. And again, the ratio for program leaders to students is 1 to 12. So for cultural activities, there will always be one program leader or one staff member per 12 students. So that's another important ratio to keep in mind there. Any other questions before we wrap up? I would ask just one more of Elena before we wrap up, because I'm curious. Are you still in contact with your classmates or your host family or, your community from when you studied abroad in Madrid? Could you tell us a little bit more about if you stayed in touch with your CIE classmates and host family and so on?
Yeah, so I do still stay in touch with them. Not as much as I would like to, but we are still in touch. I follow all of my friends on social media. They follow me back. I follow my homestay sister on social media as well. And we still chat each other all the time. So yeah, it definitely this program gives you strong friendships and strong relationships.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I still speak with my host sister from Vietnam from when I studied abroad 15 years ago now. Um, so I can speak to that as well from my experience. It's really incredible how the community connections and the friendships that you develop there. It's really unlike any other experience, I would say. And the bonds that you form are lifelong relationships. Wonderful. Does anybody else have any questions before we wrap up? It looks like that's about it, but one last chance to scan here and to get $200 in rewards yourself, as well as give Elena $200 in referral rewards. So do take advantage of that if you have not already. I'm going to include our contact information now in the chat too, in case you have any questions that come up in the future. Don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to chat with students and parents and address their questions and concerns. And if you have not already opened up an application, once you do, your regional coordinator and your region will reach out once you've opened that application up to introduce themselves and get in touch as your main point of reference. And I'm going to put here in the chat our direct phone number and our email, as well as a calendar link where you can set up an appointment with your regional coordinator and go over any additional questions that you may have. It seems like there were some more questions about eligibility, or the stamp exam, or the seal of biliteracy, things like that. You're always welcome to reach out to us, and we're happy to take a closer look at your situation, your academic history, and give you some guidance there. All right, so thank you so much for attending this evening. Thank you so much, Elena, for sharing more about your experience studying abroad with us in our honors language and culture program in Madrid. I've learned a lot from you as well and really appreciate your time. And don't hesitate to reach out if any questions come up. We're happy to connect, and we look forward to supporting everybody and their study abroad journeys as well. All right, take care, everybody, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.